El exec, el exec, el exec. El Vélez, el Vélez, el Vélez. El fenómeno que todos quieren ser. El chamaquito que no pueden entender.
How we doing, guys? Welcome to episode 170 of the Exec Talk Podcast. I'm your host, Evelez Wassan. New chair, who's this? Shout out to my beautiful, beautiful girlfriend for this birthday present of a chair. Now I don't have to feel like I'm sitting in a prison in my own set. So this is amazing, you know, want a GTRX racing. So I'm comfortable and ready to shoot some bombs at you. We've reached championship weekend. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, hit the notification bell. Follow me on all my socials. The links will be in the description. All right. So really quick episode. Don't want to take too much of your time. It's only 2 games. Daytona 24 is this weekend as well. So we're getting back into the racing mix. Basketball is just released their All-Star starters. We'll go over that. We'll go over the Hall of Fame class a little bit more, you know, talking about Ichiro. They didn't make him a unanimous. Some bum that probably doesn't know what he's doing or wanted to be special didn't make him a unanimous selection. Mariano is still the only unanimous selection in baseball history. Yeah, that means Babe Ruth. That means Mickey Mantle, Ted Williams, and Ken Griffey. All your favorite all-timers. None of them are in unanimously. Only the greatest closer of all time, Mariano. CC got in as a first ballot Hall of Famer. It had to happen. Just what he meant to the game. I think there's only like 23 pitchers all time with 3,000 wins, 300 wins and 3,000 strikeouts. He also has a ring. He has a Cy Young as well. Dominated for years. He was a horse, putting innings after innings after innings, even into his late 30s. So he deserved it. And then Billy Wagner, which is also one of the greatest closers of all time, behind probably just Mariano and Trevor Hoffman, you know, deserved it as well on his 5th and last time on the ballot. So I'm happy for Billy to get in, and his son that is now actually playing with the Blue Jays. All right, so let's get to the championship. Actually, first, let's get to the head coaching hires. In Jacksonville, Liam Cohen, after deciding that he was going to go back to Tampa because Trent Baalke was still the GM at Jaguars, the Jaguars realized that was a mistake, and they quickly rectified that by firing Trent Baalke as their GM, and they literally like hounded Liam Cohen for like 3 days straight. Liam Cohen got into the building, and they were determined not to let him leave. They were going to give him Ben Johnson type money, so somewhere around the teens in the million, like 13 million, which is, you know, that's the going rate for a starting head coach now if you want to really keep him. He did wonders with Baker Mayfield, so if there's somebody that can pick up Trevor and maybe finally show him how to unlock the potential that we saw at Clemson, and sometimes like the flashes in the pan that we see in the throughout his career, that'd be great because he has weapons in order to, you know, use that to in order to win. The defense is kind of coming around, especially at the D line. So I'm thinking that Liam Cohen, if he just builds the offense around T-Law, that T-Law could flourish and really show that he could be one of the top 5 best quarterbacks in the league and you know, take the Jaguars far into the playoffs and maybe beyond that. So I think it's a good hire. The team that we're going to call Boo Boo Kachu, Garbash Mistache for the next probably 10 years is the Cowboys. This team has no idea what they're doing. Jerry Jones is lone wolfing it. He's not even putting his kids in order to help him. He brought in his offensive coordinator for a shitty-ass team that he just had in Brian Schottenheimer, but the reason he brought him in to probably be his head coach, it's not final yet, but it's probably going to become final in the next few days. One, he knew he couldn't get Dion. Two, he wants somebody that he can control. He always wants control, and because he wants control, ever since he got rid of Jimmy Johnson, he has not won a damn thing, and it's not going to win a damn thing because now with the uprising of the Commanders in his own division, now you have to deal with the Eagles, with the Commanders, and if the Giants get a quarterback, maybe Shedeur Sanders, which would be ironic as hell, considering that Jerry wanted Shedeur and Dion to go to Dallas. He's going to have a problem being anything else but last in his division, and he's going to lose Micah Parsons. He's going to lose CeeDee Lamb because those players are not there to lose. Those players are there to win, and you're not going to have a mediocre team with superstars on it. It's just not going to happen. So, Jerry Jones, either get your head out of your ass or you're going to understand what it is to truly be a poverty franchise from the high pedestals that you had this team in the 80s and the 90s. Another hire, Ben Johnson to the Bears, probably the only guy can really fix Ben Johnson. We talked about it a little bit, but I kind of shitted on the front office because it's always been just a mediocre franchise ever since 1985 when they won the championship. But I got to give Ben Johnson the benefit of the doubt. He did work wonders with Jared Goff in Detroit. He's going to be in the division, so he knows the teams well. He's building his staff. I think that with Caleb, Rome Odunze, Keenan Allen, and more, I think it's possible for this team to be good next year. The defense is solid. They have two good corners in Stevenson and Jalen Johnson. I think that this team could definitely do some damage if Caleb is figured out. So that's on what's on Ben Johnson's shoulders and what ultimately is going to make or break him in this opportunity. Aaron Glenn, we talked about him going to the Jets. He was the 12th overall pick back when Pete Carroll picked him. Speaking of Pete Carroll, he's Tom Brady's pick for the Raiders job. Do I believe it's a good hire? I believe it's a great hire. He's 73, going to be 74 during the season, but he's a culture builder. I mean, he's won at the college level. He's won a Super Bowl. So, if you want a culture setter, somebody that is high energy, going to keep the boys rolling. The only thing, you don't got a GM. You don't have a quarterback. You're going to have to figure that out, whether that's Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins. You look for somebody in the draft and try to develop them, maybe a Jalen Milroe. But you have weapons. You have a Brock Bowers. You have a Jacoby Myers. You have Max Crosby. So, I think that it's doable, but he picked the worst division coaching-wise to go into and quarterback-wise. You have the dynasty. So you're facing Patrick and Andy Reid 2 times a year. You're also facing Jim Harbaugh and Herbert 2 times a year in the Chargers. And you're facing Sean Payton with Bo Nix also 2 times a year. It's not going to be easy, but if somebody of that high caliber that could go into that organization and really turn it around, I think it is Pete Carroll. So I applaud Tom Brady for making that decision. We know that he was heavily involved in the selection process. All right, so championship weekend. Let's start with Commanders, Eagles. And we're going to break this down. Quarterback, running backs, offensive line, coaching, scheme, and X factors. Okay, so let's start with the quarterbacks. Obviously, we have Jalen Hurts versus Jaden Daniels. My edge goes to Jaden Daniels. He's the better passer. He's the better runner. He's the better decision maker, and he has the best poise out of both quarterbacks. Now, I say that also basically saying Jalen Hurts is hurt. His knee, he did practice Thursday. He was a full participant, took all the reps, but we don't know how much he can run. We don't know the status of his leg. And to be honest, this past offense has not been prolific at all this season. So if I'm the Commanders, I try my best to stop Saquon. And if Saquon gets less than 150 yards, which is crazy to say, like, oh yeah, hold the runner under 150 yards and you have a good shot, but that's how good he is. If they hold him anywhere to close to 100 or even below 100, miracle, but definitely possible with Dan Quinn. You can try to make Jalen Hurts beat you with the pass, and as we've seen, it's not completely how do I say? It's not completely foolproof that he's going to deliver. Whether it's his arm, whether it's decision making, whether it's accuracy, it's just not there. Even though he has A.J. Brown, he has Dallas Goedert, he has Devontae Smith, and even Saquon out the backfield. The passing game is not their strong suit. Their strong suit is bullying you with that offensive line, which that takes me to my next point. Between these two offensive lines, I'll get back to Jaden after I talk about this. Between these two offensive lines, the number one offensive line in the league is the Eagles' offensive line. Lander Dickerson, Lane Johnson, Malata, Cam Jurgens. Like, that is the best offensive line in the league, and they just run you over. Okay, they just make holes for Saquon and let him pick, and he let him bust it. But the Washington offensive line, even though Sam Cosmi had tore his ACL last week, has been playing well. And they have the luxury of, like, even if they don't block up perfect, they have a quarterback that can get outside the pocket and make shit happen. You get what I'm saying? So ultimately what this is going to come down to is, can the Washington Commanders offensive line hold up against Jalen Carter, Nolan Smith Jr., Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat? Can it hold up against them? And at the same time, can the D-line, now getting Jonathan Allen back, can the D-line of the Commanders fight against this offensive line of the Eagles? That's where this game is going to really be won, because the Washington Commanders have to somehow show a semblance to be able to run the ball, to not have everybody in cover 2 and in zone. I don't think they'll play man. Jaden Daniels just shreds man coverage. And I don't think they'll blitz him. And if they do, they're gonna understand why people don't want to blitz him, even though he's a rookie, because he shreds blitzes. He absolutely destroys blitzes. So he tears you apart with throwing behind them and escaping the pocket and running, and the speed is real. So if I'm on the Eagles side, my number one job is to get Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis to penetrate the middle of the line. If I can penetrate the middle of the line and move the spot and not let them be comfortable in the pocket, then I at least give myself a chance, if I can maintain containment on the edges, to have a coverage sack. Now, if we go to running backs, obviously it's Saquon versus Brian Robinson Jr. and Eckler. Of course, we're taking Saquon here. I mean, he's a generational back, probably going to go into the Hall of Fame. Every single 2,000-yard rusher is in the Hall of Fame except CJ 2K, I believe. But if he goes off, Eagles will win. Eagles can win without throwing the ball if Saquon goes off. If Saquon goes for 150 plus and 2 touchdowns and he hits home runs, this is not really going to be a close game, which is what the Eagles really want. They don't really want Jalen having to throw the ball. If they can just dominate on the ground, they'll be happy with that. On the other side, Cliff is going to run the ball regardless if it's successful or not because he has to keep the defense honest. He's done it the last 2 games. He did it against Tampa and he did it against the Lions. Even though he couldn't run the ball, he stuck to it to maintain balance. I think that even if he gets a semblance of the running game, it'll be great because as long as there are 7 people in the box against Jaden Daniels, he will find a matchup he likes, and he will put the ball where it's supposed to go. If we go on both sides defensively, there's not really a competition besides maybe Mikey Sanderstill for the Commander and Luvu for the Commanders as like legit defensive good people, and then on the D-line, of course, you got Jonathan Allen, Daron Payne, you got your edges, but those 2 guys in the middle is what makes that line so formidable. But it shouldn't be close because if you look at the defensive line, and the defense for the Eagles, overall. And I'm saying this because, like, if you look at that defense, I mean, what's not to like? Jalen Carter, Jordan Davis, Norland Smith Jr., Bryce Huff, Josh Sweat, Cooper DeJean, Quinyon Mitchell, who's gonna play, Reed Blankenship, CJ GJ, Zach Bond, Oren Burks, because no Nakobe Dean. That's probably the biggest loss for the Eagles. Other than that, they're healthy. And then Darius Slay. So there shouldn't be people open like we saw last week for the Commanders. There shouldn't be people open. I think people will get open just because Jaden is either going to make them open or, Terry McLaurin or De'Ami Brown get open themselves, or maybe Eckler gets underneath. But other than that, there shouldn't be a lot of openings in this defense, even though the last time they faced them, Jaden shredded them, even though they forced 5 turnovers. X factors for me: containing Jaden Daniels' legs, and if it's a close game at the end. I can't name turnovers as an X factor because that is always an X factor. That is always baked into the cake. Okay? Time of possession, because the Commanders love long drives. They love the 10-plus play drive of methodically matriculating their way down the field. Shout out to, I believe it was Vince Lombardi who said that. Let's just keep matriculating the ball down the field, boys. But on the Eagles side, it's going to be striking quick. It's going to be maintaining yourself above like in front of the chains, 2nd and 5s, 3rd and 2s, you have the tush push. Are you going to use Jalen? This is the NFC Championship. How far is Jalen going to take his legs? Are you going to run the read option? Is he going to be comfortable enough doing that? Because if not, then Dan Quinn can get a lot more aggressive in his blitz packages and in his defense when it comes to his linebackers and his line. If they do use the read option, then that maintains a fluidity and a question for the linebackers, and they can't run fit as fast as they see it. So X factors are Jalen Daniels' legs, and don't let it be close in the 4th quarter because this kid will take it from you. And then for the Eagles is stay up in front of the chains, and when you get to 3rd and long, there's going to be some 3rd and longs. When you get to 3rd and long, are you able to pick it up when you have a 3rd and 7, when you have a 3rd and 6, when you have a 3rd and 10, and also penalties? We're going to have some, maybe 1 or 2 pass interferences. We're going to have some holdings. We're going to have some false starts. Pre-snap penalties kill drives. You don't want to be in a 2nd and 8 and get a false start and make that shit a 2nd and 13. It's not fun. It's not easy to pick up. Okay? So that's what's going to be. Ultimately, my verdict is going to be the Eagles. Now, the spread is 6.5 for the Eagles. Right now, 6.5 for me is a little steep against this Commanders team just from what we've seen. Yeah, it's a 6-point spread. It's still a little heavy for me. The weather at the link is going to be 38 degrees, but sunny. So, normal Philadelphia weather. These two teams know how to play in the cold. I'm not worried about that. The total is a 47.5, and Washington's a plus 230 underdog money line. I'm going to go with the Eagles. I don't know, and I don't think that the Commanders can stop Saquon. Okay? They're going to divert all resources in order to do that, but I just don't know if they can do it for 4 quarters. This man in the 3rd and 4th quarter, he turns into something else. He turns into something like Derrick Henry. The people, those backs, Marshawn Lynch, those backs that get way better in that second half, Adrian Peterson's of the world. So I'm going to go with the Eagles. Now, this is the game, however, that if the Commanders win, I am not surprised in the least just because I know how good Jaden Daniels is. This kid could become the first rookie quarterback ever to take his team to the Super Bowl and have a chance at winning it. In my opinion, quarterback-wise, he will stand more of a threat to Josh or Patrick than Jalen. But I'm going to go with the Eagles. Okay, I'm going to go with the Eagles. Let me write that down real quick. You know how we always write down our predictions. Episode 170. Or 171. We're going with the Eagles. Okay. Now we go to the AFC Championship game, the legacy game, the game that decides the fate of 2 of the best quarterbacks we've ever seen, of a dynasty that will never be replicated if the mission is completed, and a guy who's trying to beat his number 1 nemesis for the first time in the playoffs. It's at Arrowhead. That's the first thing you gotta know. It's at Arrowhead. If we start with the quarterbacks, okay? If we start with the quarterbacks, I believe that right now, Josh is playing better than Patrick. However, when it comes to nut checking time, when it comes to that 4th quarter, those last few possessions, I think that Patrick still holds the candle. Okay? Patrick still swings the big stick. Pause. You know what I'm saying? Because he's done it before on this stage against this dude. Okay? This defense is not impenetrable. Okay? This is not the Baltimore Ravens defense. This defense can get got. Can they cover Travis Kelce? They're going to try to cover him. One thing they're not going to have is Taylor Rapp. They're not going to have their starting safety. Okay? He's out. It's going to come down to the patch job offensive line with Joe Tooney at left tackle. The inside, Phillips, Ed Oliver, and Jones, are they going to be able to break through the inside of that line with Trey Smith, Creed Humphrey, and the guard. I forgot who's playing there at guard. Another thing. Is it possible for the Chiefs to run the ball effectively? If it is, it makes it that much harder for the Buffalo Bills. Why? One, it runs clock. Two, it helps the Chiefs stay ahead of the chains. And three, it always leaves you susceptible to the play action. Okay? An X factor in this game is definitely going to be Hollywood Brown. It's definitely going to be Xavier Worthy. We know what Kelsey can do. But if Kelsey is diverted like 3 resources against him and it's one-on-one everywhere else, I hope and pray that Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy could get open with their speed. Okay? Another X factor is going to be, how in the world is this Bills offensive line going to stop Chris Jones? Okay? And if they divert 2 offensive linemen to him at all times, can those 2 tackles, Deion Dawkins, I'm not really worried about. He's a really good player. But can those 2 tackles hold off the Omenihu, the Karloftis, Dana, a Bolton blitz? Can they do that? As well as, are they going to be able to stop if they get into 3rd and long? Let's say they get a holding call on first down and it's 1st and 20, and 2nd down they get 4 yards. So it's 2nd and 16. Okay, and then incomplete pass. So it's 3rd and 16. Spags is coming with the pressure. Where is it coming from? Is it coming from a McDuffie blitz? Is it coming? The simulated pressure is also going to happen, but he's sending somebody. You always get somebody free. When somebody gets free, can Josh Allen react fast enough, or can somebody get open fast enough so it renders the blitz and the pressure obsolete? And I do not believe, we've seen it 3 games in a row, Spags has always gotten his way. The reason Spags always gets his way is because he has Chris Jones. And he believes in Trent McDuffie and his corners to leave him on islands. On those critical downs. He believes in his safeties. He believes in his linebackers. Okay? Another big piece to the puzzle is Khalil Shakir matching up one-on-one versus Trent McDuffie. If so, if Khalil Shakir gets locked up, will Josh Allen divert his attention to a Dalton Kincaid, Keon Coleman, Matt Collins, and then finally, and probably the biggest piece to this puzzle is not even about Josh Allen, can the Buffalo Bills run the football with James Cook or Ray Davis or Ty Johnson? Can they run the football? If they cannot run the football, this is going to be a hard game for Josh because it's going to be all on his arm and he's going to have to pinpoint every throw. And it will cause a mistake. On the other side, can the Buffalo Bills force Mahomes into a mistake? This man has not turned the ball over since week 12. Okay? Week 12. Longest streak in the NFL. He does not beat himself. He's not going to give you opportunities to try to get you for you to take the ball away from him. You're going to have to force him to give it to you. Whether it's a fumble or confusing him on an overthrow or tipping a ball, anything like that. Another thing, batted passes at the line of scrimmage are huge in this game. Both teams are really good at them, and they decide drives. And finally, Andy Reid versus Sean McDermott. Steve Spagnuolo versus is it John Dorsey? No, Joe Brady. Against Joe Brady. Those are chess matches. And Andy Reid and Spags are chess masters. Can the Buffalo Bills staff come up to the level? Okay? Turnovers will decide this game, but I don't think fully. What's going to decide this game is who settles for, who can score in the red zone and who settles for 3. And there's always going to be a fourth down. There's always going to be a fourth down. And special teams will be crucial. Okay? The best kicker in this matchup, I believe, is Harrison Buckner. Okay? I think he's the best kicker left in the playoffs, to be honest. So that's what's come down to. I'm going Chiefs. They're at home. It's a 1.5 point spread. The Buffalo Bills are just 110 plus 110 underdog. This is evenly matched 48.5. I don't think it's a high scoring game. I think this is a very defensive game, methodical, long drives, because I don't think both teams are giving up the big play. Okay? Andy Reid's play design inside the 20 versus McDermott's scheme defensively in the red zone. That's what it's going to come down to. The weather, 33 degrees, it's not going to bother nobody. Whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl. Okay, so this is the Super Bowl, essentially. Although I like the Eagles and I like the Commanders, the difference in level of quarterback play, even though I love Jaden, is insurmountable. Okay, you have 2 generational talents you got to go against. Okay, I'm taking the Chiefs. I think that they can complete the three-peat and become immortals. Okay? Will Travis Kelce have another Travis Kelce game? I don't see how they cover him. I don't see it. You can put Teron Johnson on him. You can put 2 people on him. If you put 2 people on Travis Kelce, I expect Hollywood Brown to get targets, and I expect Xavier Worthy to get targets, and Noah Gray. Even Watson. Okay? But I'm going with the Kansas City Chiefs. Whoever sacked more will probably lose the game. The Chiefs are coming off an 8-sack game on defense, and the Bills pressured Lamar. It couldn't really stop that offense, and that's without Zay Flowers. So it's going to be very interesting. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the NBA, and then we'll get out of here. The NBA All-Star starters got announced. Let me see where they're at here. All-Star starters. All right, so the All-Star starters for the East are Giannis Antetokounmpo, Jason Tatum, Donovan Mitchell, Jalen Brunson, and Karl Anthony Towns. Pretty standard. I don't know why Jalen Brunson was necessarily the point guard. I would have seen maybe Damian Lillard, maybe even LaMelo, but they have a great team. They're in the top 5 in the conference, so top 4 in the conference actually. The third team they're right behind Boston. So I understand it. In the West, you have Nikola Jokic, Kevin Durant, of course, SGA, and Steph, plus LeBron. LeBron passes his Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's 19 selections. No, he's passed it last season. He just extended his record, so be his 21st. His 21st, and he's joined in the starting lineup by Nikola Jokic, KD, SGA, and Steph. This is all vote getting for the starters at this point. The reserves have not come out yet. They have not come out yet. Curry has he surpassed Luka by a little bit because Luka's been hurt. And SGA is the MVP right now. Okay. So, and then Kat is his first time starting. I believe that this really is just for legacy's sake. We'll see who the reserves are. There's been a lot of injuries this year, so it's going to be interesting. LaMelo was in the mix, who finished with the most fan votes. And then, of course, Damian Lillard was in the mix. But yeah, those are your all-star starters. As for the standings, as they stand right now, Boston 6 behind the Cleveland Cavaliers. New York is 2 behind Boston, so they're 8 back. Milwaukee is 10.5 back, 2.5 behind New York. The Pacers, surprisingly, are 12.5 back, so 2.5 back of Milwaukee. Detroit is 6. Cade Cunningham has been playing. He balls out. They're 13.5 back, so they're only 1 game back of the Pacers. Orlando's 14.5 back, only 1 game back of Detroit. Atlanta is 14.5 back, just like Orlando. Miami is 15 back, so half a game back behind Orlando and Atlanta. And Chicago's 18 back, 3 behind Miami. So they're kind of in 10th by themselves because they have a 2.5 game lead on Philly, who's 20.5 games back. Brooklyn, Charlotte, Toronto, Washington is not really a way. I can't see that they can get in there. OKC has a 6.5 game lead on Houston. Houston has a half game lead on Memphis. They're 7 games back. Denver is 1 game back of Memphis. They're 8 games back. The Lakers are 5th, but they're 3 games behind Denver, 11 games back. The Clippers are also 11 games back in 6th place. Dallas is 12.5 games back, a game and a half back of the Clips. Minnesota's 13 games back, so a half game back of Dallas. Sacramento's 13 games back, right there with Minnesota. And Phoenix is 13.5 games back, half a game back of Sacramento and Minnesota. Golden State is 14 games back, half a game back of Phoenix for 10th place. And then comes San Antonio, 15 games back, just 2.5 to 1.5 games back of the 10th spot. SGA is the only guy at 32 points a game. Other than that, none of the stats have changed from episode 2 days ago. What I'm seeing in the NBA is kind of just, it's really not a lot of people covering it. Probably because the NFL and college football, college football just ended. NFL is reaching the peak of peaks right now. We'll pick it up definitely after the Super Bowl with the basketball. I'll really hone in on highlights and stuff. I'm really behind on highlights because of work and stuff like that. But there's a lot of injuries. Zion, there's Ja's playing well, but I think when we think about what's going to happen in the playoffs, I think an East team this year is definitely another win this year. Boston doesn't really convince me anymore, but they're more of a playoff team than a regular season team now that they got it done. I'm really interested in what Milwaukee's going to do now that they know how to play with Giannis and Dame. New York is always a viable opponent. And then from there, if it's Pacers, Detroit, Atlanta, Orlando, Miami, Chicago, and no Philly, even though Philly can get in there, but no Philly, we're looking at pretty, I don't want to say weak matchups, but it's literally Cleveland, Boston, New York, and Milwaukee that are gonna hold that path to the final. In the West, I could see OKC reaching the finals, Memphis, Denver, of course. I don't know about the Lakers. Maybe the Clippers if Kawhi stays healthy. Dallas, of course, once Luka comes back. Minnesota has to pick it up. Maybe they need to do something at the trade deadline because it's clearly not working with Julius Randle. Sacramento, I don't think can go there. And then if Phoenix gets on an all-time heater, maybe, and they do something at the trade deadline. Golden State, even if they make it to the dance, I don't think they have enough, even though with the pedigree of Steph and Draymond and stuff like that, but I just don't think they have enough. So that's what we're looking at in the NBA. Other than that, thank you for joining me in episode 170 of the Exec Talk Podcast. I love you guys. Hit the like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, follow me on my socials, and I leave you all with the outro.
Que todos quieren ser, el chamaquito que no pueden entender.